Okay, so we we spoke yesterday, or today is Friday. I'm taking this is Nimni's class, so it's Hilchos Shabbos today. And yesterday we spoke about Kli Sheni. So I took from the water urn downstairs, and the temperature reaches 150. That would be Fahrenheit. So let's see what happens then when I pour it to a Kli Sheni. So this the Kli Sheni was 150. And I guess what we do have to do is experiment to see how long it would take for the temperature to drop. So right now it's 150. From the time I came upstairs, from downstairs to upstairs, it stayed the same. So I'm going to pour it over to this. So this is the Kli Sheni. I'm pouring it now to a Kli Shlishi. Wait for the temperature to drop. I have some hot water. Okay, so now this is dropped to 100. Almost. Now we put into the Shlishi. So it went to 125 from 150. So just by putting it into Kli Shlishi, it dropped already another 25 degrees. So that was immediate, and then we'll see how long it sustains it. So we see the immediate drop from Kli Sheni to Kli Shlishi, how drastically it drops. And also, the question is also, how long does it keep the temperature? When you put something in, it takes time to heat it up as well. So by the time it heats it up, this already, I'm assuming now that the Kli Shlishi also, the temperature is not maintaining the whole time that temperature, it's also diminishing it. So let's see how long this goes. Okay, so that's our little experiment for today. So we see how it dropped from Kli Sheni, it was 150. Kli Shlishi, immediately it went to 125. And staying at that temperature. Meanwhile, let's see if I take it out, pull it off. It's going to go back to 125. Let's for this, I would need a cold. Okay, it dropped. Let's put it back into the Kli Shlishi. Moves up to 125. Now, what these cups are also insulated. These are not. It's not the same as I would put in the plastic cup. I think the plastic cup would drop much quicker as well. So this also maintains it. But even so, just pouring from one to the other without having actually the walls cooling it off specifically, it's already just from pouring from one to the other, it dropped 25 degrees. So we see that just pouring from one vessel to the other, the temperature drops. And then if this would be, I guess, just a plastic or just a cold cup, it would drop even more. Right now, it's maintaining it at the 125, so it's keeping that temperature. So these are pretty good insulated. Testing, if you. Okay, so we had a double test. Okay, so that's okay, Camelia. So you're joining our class. I haven't seen you in our Shabbos class on Thursday, so possibly I'm assuming that you're here for the Friday class. Okay. Let's go to ladle. So okay, so now we're on page 168. So we spoke about the hot solid food that retains its heat for a longer time, and you would actually, if you're going to be applying, so we spoke yesterday about the salt and sugar, and those items that are pre-cooked, dry, but they melt, they dissolve and become a part of that which you are serving. So that again, we consider that as something that is wet. Therefore, we would avoid heating it up. So therefore, when we spoke about the soup, if you want to add salt, it's recommended that you do some klishlishi, not the klisheni, unless the klisheni itself cools down enough that when you're eating it, it's comfortable to eat. It's not in any way hot. It's comfortable to eat. And then
I have a question here about the lemon.
so then we're going down. So that's what we're doing now. So now now we said that in the klisheni you could add spices because the purpose of the spices are not to cook. You're not cooking the spices, but you're adding it as a flavor. However, over here, we have these spices. It matters how it used to be served then, how it's being served now. At that time, when you had the pepper, you actually had pieces of pepper. Right now, they make it into a fine powder. That heats up quicker than solids. When you have peppers that are, or the peppers that are actually, you could actually see the pepper seed. So that takes a longer time for it to heat up. But if you take something and make it into a powder, that is not pre-cooked, it's not preheated, so that itself would heat up quicker, and therefore to avoid using that in the kli sheni. So you have black pepper, paprika, and put it into kli shlishi because they're very finely cooked. So now, what about lemon and vegetables? Putting that into kli sheni. So there again, that will cook the raw lemon, and therefore putting them into a kli shlishi is recommended. So here the question would be about kli rishon, kli sheni. If you are making, so now the lemon itself, we are concerned about not cooking the lemon. So the kli shlishi, that is where you would not put in the lemon juice, but rather lemon slices. So again, squeezing lemon into your tea, that is not permissible because we are extracting the juice of a fruit or vegetable and using it as a liquid. The only time you could use the lemon juice, squeezing it directly, would be if you're using it as a flavor to a solid, or it becomes a part of a solid. So squeezing lemon into directly into salad would be is permissible. We would not squeeze it first into a cup or into a spoon and then into the salad. It would have to get directly. Same thing as if you want to flavor the salmon fish or any other. You're squeezing it directly onto the solid, so that is permissible. If you're squeezing it into a liquid, that cannot be done unless you have pre-squeezed lemon juice from before Shabbos, whether it is that you're squeezing an actual lemon and putting it into a cup, into a vessel to save, to flavor your tea the next day on Shabbos, or if you have the lemon that is already in a pre-commercial lemon juice that they sell.
What if you put a filter? Like
It cannot be done. No, that stuff cannot be done. In other words, as far as the seeds are concerned, you cannot use your hand as a filter.
No.
I know, but you get a filter as well. So you cannot use a tool to separate the good and the bad. That cannot be done with a tool at any time. So again, it's always recommended to use a kli shlishi when you're going to be adding whether lemon slices or sugar, salt. So it's recommended a kli shlishi.
So squeezing the lemon in the tea.
Cannot be done. Cannot be done because you're making from the lemon, you're making it to lemon juice. It becomes a liquid. It's used as a liquid. You cannot squeeze the fruits and vegetables to make a liquid. No, just like you cannot make orange juice or apple juice or tomato juice on Shabbos, you cannot make lemon juice, even though you're using it as a flavoring as a juice. It remains as a juice. It's not used as a food. When you squeeze it on the salmon, you're eating the salmon with the juice. You're eating the lemon. When you're putting it into a salad, you're eating the salad. When you're putting it into the tea, you're drinking the tea.
So if I cut
That could be, yes, you could put it in, but in kli shlishi, because we don't want to cook the lemon. Okay, so this is with the ladle. Is it a kli rishon or kli sheni? So it said that matters how long you leave it. That's on page 169. Easily cooked foods. So 170, we have, when it comes to a kli shlishi, it's interesting now, this is still at 125. It did not drop since. That's the temperature it stays in this. That's how it's going. Usually in the ceramic cups, it drops so quickly. I mean, whenever I'm drinking, I have to keeping. I'll have to make an experiment at home and see, how long that keeps the temperature. But here it's keeping the 125.
No.
125 is not hot. You can't keep it there very long.
Maybe you have to dig it
No, you can't keep it there very long. I mean, when I put it in, it's fine. When I keep it there, I feel it. So 125 is hot. No, I can't keep my finger inside.
Oh, really? No,
I can't keep it inside. I can just put it in and take it out.
Okay.
But if I keep it inside, I feel if anyone wants to experiment on this. So when it comes to things that are easily cooked, there's some people who are strict about a kli shlishi as well. It doesn't go about a kli shlishi, but they go according to the temperature, how hot it becomes. Now, so making tea, some people are, again, in our community, the Rabbanim, when they ask about making tea, they say you can make it in a kli shlishi. In other circles, they go according to the temperature of the water rather than how many vessels you're using. They will say that kli shlishi is not enough. If the water is still very hot, you have to wait for the water to cool down before you're making tea. But in our community, we do go with the kli shlishi, that once it's a kli shlishi, you can make tea. Now, now we have two issues when it comes to the tea bag. And this is the same thing going to be with your question that you asked. Now it's as follows. We have the tea leaves are called, basically, you're not eating the tea leaves. Let's take, first of all, before we take the tea bag, let's take the loose tea. You have loose tea in the water. The loose tea is not something that people want to drink. What you do want is you want the tea leaves to flavor the water, and you want to drink the liquid without the tea leaves. So if you have the tea leaves themselves, what you would do is you would wait for the tea leaves to settle on the bottom, And then some people would drink them because you're not stirring them. You're leaving them settle to the bottom, and therefore, as you're drinking what you want, and you're leaving what you don't want behind. So as long as it is a mixture, you haven't separated them. So as long as when you are, let's say, so you have three options. Okay, let's take. So number one would be that you're going to wait. So you put it. We're speaking now about the loose tea leaves. So now you have the loose tea leaves. You had it here. So we're going to use the kli shlishi. So pouring from a kli sheni to a kli shlishi is the same as the kli shlishi itself. So you could have the tea leaves in here. You'll pour from the kli sheni onto the kli shlishi, and you let it settle, and then you'll drink it. What happens if you don't want the tea leaves in your bag? So what you would do is you would pour into another cup, but you would have to leave some liquid with the tea leaves, because in that case, what you're doing is you're taking away what you want and you're leaving what you don't want behind. So that would be fine. But if it is, but still we do not want to take the tea leaves out of solution. You'll pour it until you come to the section where there is the liquid and the tea leaves. Now let's do the same thing with the tea bag. The tea bag as well is also a filter. So when is it filtering? When you pull it out, then the water goes out, and now you have the tea leaves. What you have with the tea leaves now is you take the unwanted from the wanted. Cannot be done. So we do have to leave it in solution. As long as it's in solution, you haven't separated it, because the liquid and the tea leaves are still mixed. So what would people do if they do have a tea bag? What do you do now when you want to drink your tea? Some people will drink it with a tea bag inside. You'll drink it. People who don't want the tea bag inside, what could you do? Here you could take the spoon with liquid, leave the tea bag in the spoon with the liquid. The liquid itself is still good. It's not the same as when a fly fell in and you're going to take the spoon with the fly and the liquid, you're going to throw everything out. You're not going to get rid of the fly and then drink this. But if you went with when you're taking a spoon with a tea bag, the tea that's in the spoon is also good. So you haven't taken the tea bag out of solution. The tea bag is still in solution. The tea bag is still in the liquid. So you haven't separated a mixture. So then you take the tea bag with a spoon with liquid. Yeah, I would recommend a bigger spoon, not the tea bag. Not the teaspoon is too small. Take a bigger spoon, so you actually have liquid with it, with a tea bag, and then you could take it out. Another thing would be is to leave the tea bag inside and then pour it to another cup, and leaving some water together with the tea bag, so you haven't taken it out of solution. So that would be fine. So again, the thing would be also, we don't want to cook the tea leaves if we're doing that on Shabbos to begin with. So we would use kli shlishi. If you do have that, now what's with a thing that fills up the whole thing? You described a tube.
Yeah.
So you have to. So again, you can't take it out of solution.
No, it stays inside.
It stays.
Yeah,
So
it
then,
doesn't go.
So then, as long as there's still the liquid together with it, it would be the same as the tea bag. Now, the same with, now we also have that. It's recommended over here that you use a teapot, that you cook the tea bags before Shabbos. You have those, that you add scents, you make scents, you take 5 tea bags, put it into your teapot. That's not on the stove. It's just a teapot. You put it in the tea bags for Shabbos. You pour the hot water on it, so you're cooking the tea leaves. So then you could add that to your kli sheni. You don't need a kli shlishi for that, because it's been cooked before Shabbos. Do you understand what happened?
No.
Okay. Some people will have tea scents. They don't use tea bags. They don't put the raw tea leaves into your cup, What they do is they have a separate little teapot. Has a handle, has a spout. Some of them have a little filter at the end. It's made special too. You don't know, you're not familiar. Are you familiar with such a thing?
What?
Are you familiar with a teapot?
Yeah.
That you make the sense? People don't want to have everyone putting in their tea bags into their cup. So they take one, just like we spoke about this soup tureen.
Oh, yeah,
The
okay.
same thing, it's not a soup tureen, but this is a tea holder, a tea holder, and you make the concentrated tea. And then when you're serving the tea, everyone does not get a tea bag. It's a flavor that everybody likes. So you ask everybody, would you like them?
Right.
So everybody says they want this tea. So you make the flavor, you make a very heavy concentrate, and then people don't have to use their tea bag and take it in, take it out. Everyone adds the concentrate to their tea. So in this case, you could add that to klisheni because it's pre-cooked. You're not cooking the tea leaves.
Where is the water goes for baking?
So you leave it always in solution. It'll always be either when you're making. Sometimes you take tea bags. Some people will make it very, very before Shabbos. Leave it there for 5-10 minutes. Then they take all the tea bags out. Then they'll just have the liquid without any tea bags inside. Then it's just keep pouring.
But you cannot take it out.
On Shabbos?
The tea bags.
No, they're not just take it out before Shabbos. Since it's a
Okay.
concentrate,
Oh,
you can make it, put in as many tea bags as you want to make it as concentrated as you wish. So they would do everything that before Shabbos. You take it out before Shabbos, so it's not an issue of leaving any water in, leaving water out. You could use it, and then you could just add it to your kli sheni, and that would be fine. Making making tea or coffee, cocoa. So there we had two issues. One issue was not to make a paste, and second of all, not to cook it. So then again, when you're making cocoa, usually you add a little water. On the weekdays, you add a little water with the cocoa, stir it until it becomes a paste. So in this case, you can't make, you don't have to fill it up with water, but you do have to put in enough water. It shouldn't become a paste. It should be loose. If you're making cocoa, and then again, this would be done with a kli shlishi.
Loose, which means does mean loose?
Loose means it's pourable. It doesn't become a paste. You understand? There's a paste and there's a liquid. So if you were to put cocoa and you add water, a lot of water right away, so what happens is it clumps up and it floats all around. You don't get a smooth cup of cocoa. So what you have to do is usually in the weekdays, what you do is you put in the cocoa with whatever else you want to add. Then you put in a little water, you stir it till it becomes a paste. Then you add the water. That's in the weekdays. On Shabbos, you can't make a paste because it's a thick, it's like making a dough. So in that case, you add in more water than you would in the weekdays, and it should not become thick and heavy. It should be, but it's enough that you're able to stir until it becomes all diluted. And then you add the more water. So this would all be done in a kli shlishi. Okay. Now, 171. This is making coffee and cocoa. Again, kli shlishi. Now, when you are pouring water into from a kli rishon to a kli sheni, so we do make sure that the kli rishon, the kli sheni is dry. If it's still going to be wet, then it's going to be cooking whatever liquid is inside. We don't want to do that. So therefore, we dry the cup that you're going to be pouring from the kli rishon, whether it's a hot water urn or the tea kettle, all of this. So now what happens if you drank your cup of beverage or hot beverage, and now you want to have a refill? If it's still warm inside, so you could add water without having to dry it. If everything became cold, then you would dry it, and then or the water.
Can I just turn it like this instead of
You go,
like this?
yes. So the little droplets are fine, as long as it shouldn't be actually liquids. This problem also applies to anything that has liquid and cooled off. To reheat it again, he said was not permissible once it became cold. So that would apply to many different situations that we usually don't think about. That would be, number one, would be when you're serving hot soup with a ladle. That's our serving spoon. It matters how you serve it. If you're serving one after the other, the ladle did not be, the soup on the ladle did not become cold. That stayed hot, stayed warm. So you can keep serving one after another without having to dry the ladle in between. What happens if you take you serve the soup, you take the ladle, put it in a dish, you take the soup and you bring it to the table, and now you come back to serve the next portion. So then it matters what happened to the ladle, how hot it is. If it's still warm, then you could serve the next. If it became cold, then you have to dry it because we don't want to re-cook the soup that's left in the ladle because the ladle is not dry. You used it unless you're going to. I don't think no one's going to do that to your ladle.
So what to do?
So you dry it. Either you keep serving, either you keep, if as long as the ladle is still warm, you serve one after another. Once the ladle became cold, and if it's dry, then it's fine. If it's still wet from the soup that you served before, you have to dry it. Take a paper towel, dry it, and then serve the next. So we're going to see to it that we're not reheating the soup that is remaining in the ladle. If the ladle is still warm, in other words, also the ladle matters. Some of them stay hot for a long time. It matters how long you kept it in the soup, how heated it became. Then it's going to take a longer time for it to cool down. If you just served it right away, it's going to cool down much quicker. So if you keep serving, there's no issue of driving the ladle in the middle because you're serving the soup and the ladle is hot. The remnant of the soup is still hot, so you keep serving and you're not recooking the soup. But once you put the ladle down and the ladle becomes cold and the ladle still has liquid on it, it's still wet. So in that case, you would dry the ladle before you're going to serve your next portion. The same would also apply if you have the hot soup, took it off the fire. It has a lid, has a cover to it. Usually, if soup has been very hot, when you pick up the cover, what happens to the cover? Cover will have condensation, steam that's there. That is called, it's wet enough to transfer the liquid. It is considered wet. Now, could you put the cover back on top of the soup? So it matters, again, how long the cover keeps the heat. If it's still warm, then you're not recooking it because it's still, the condensation is still hot, still warm. If it cooled down, then you would have to, if you want to put the lid back on, you'd have to wipe the condensation and then put it back on. We don't want to recook. Another thing would also be that when you're taking the soup off the fire, some people don't want to put it directly on their countertop because they don't want it to heat up, they don't want it to become discolored. So some people will take and put a towel on the countertop and then they take the soup and put it on top of the towel. So what issue could there be? Matters what the towel was used for. It was a drying towel, so possibly the towel is still wet. Drying, if this is a towel that you dry dishes with it, so what the towel would be wet. If you're going to take the soup, which is hot from the fire, and put it on the towel, so if it's wet enough, what you're doing is you're cooking the water that's in the towel, and we cannot do that. Just like you're not allowed to take, if the steam is working fully, you come in from the rain, you're not allowed to take and put your coat on top of the steam when the steam is working. If it's not working, you could You could put it there if you wish. But if the steam is working and it's hot enough that you're able to heat up the water to 104, so in that case, it's considered cooking, so you cannot put it there. So these are things that we have to take into consideration.
So if the dough is
It's dry, there's no
dry,
issue.
and you like, do you need to keep the half and half? Or
Oh, yeah, yes,
put
yes.
it-
No, that is if you're putting it back or not. If you're keeping it there, then there's no issue. If you're putting it back, then all the rules still apply.
The same rule.
Same rules, yeah. But what I'm speaking about is not about putting it back. I'm speaking about the first time you're putting it down, not to cook the water that's in, if it's a wet towel, to be concerned about it. Now, on 172, we have things that are dry. If you're allowed to reheat them, so we cannot reheat them in a way that it looks like you're cooking. Putting directly on the blech or the plata, the hot plate that keeps the food warm. So you cannot put it directly on it if it was not there before Shabbos. So what you have to do is do it in a way that it's very visible that all you're doing is just rewarming it. So you put it in a place where people do not cook, and therefore, if there is a pot on the blech, so then you're allowed to take the dry, pre-cooked food and put it on top of a pot that's on the blech, because then it's very visible that what you're doing is you're warming it up and not cooking it. So you can't take, let's say, again with our noodles, if you have noodles, pasta, and they were pre-cooked on Friday, they were drained and they're dry, it's not wet, even though they may be moist, but not enough to transfer the moisture to the next hand. That's halachically considered dry, and therefore that you're allowed to reheat on Shabbos. So if you want to reheat it while it's in the pot, you cannot put it on the blech itself because that is like cooking. What you could do is put it on an existing pot that is there already. What we said also was that since you're allowed to reheat it, you're allowed to put it into the, if the pot is off the fire, you're allowed to put it even into the original pot. Because it doesn't look like you're cooking because it's off the fire, and it's not cooking because it was pre-cooked. So it's only with cooked items, not roasted items, and not with baked items. It's only pre-cooked. What about the challah from the freezer, or you want to just have warm challah? Again, that you could put on top of a pot that's on the blech, or if you have a hot water urn, or if you have a crack pot, you are allowed to put things on top of that. That cooking, baking does not apply because it's not going to bake, it's not going to cook. What it's going to do to the challah, it's not going to toast it. The only thing it's going to do to it is going to heat it up.
So one of the things I used to do is like taking the challah, cover it with
Aluminum foil.
Wrap it in the aluminum.
Aluminum foil, yeah.
Yeah, and then it is heated like this on the blech.
On the blech itself. So we don't want to make toast. If you leave it long enough, is it going to become toast?
Probably.
So we don't put something down that eventually is going to be something that we don't want.
Okay.
The same thing what we spoke about, what happens if you have something that is cold and you want to put it in a place where it's going to heat up to yatzeledes, it's going to turn to one.
Maybe you have to pick it up and then
Maybe it only drops on it. Water is still warm.
that was good cut.
I had to take it out. In order to see the drop of temperature, you have to take it out. Yeah. Right now it's more than 100. It's more than 100. Let me cool it down completely to see what happens. So 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 we cannot put something in a place where it will become that hot, that's considered cooking. So even though you want to put it down in a place where you'll take it away before it happens, you can't put it there to begin with because something might come up, someone will come, some knock on the door, you have a friend, you forgot about this,
Yeah.
whatever it is. So we don't, so therefore, if it's possible to become toast, we don't want to toast the challah. So therefore, also we have to, if we're taking it out of the freezer, it might have icicles, matters what kind of freezer you have, it might frost-free, not frost-free. Some of them form, matters how long you kept the challah in the freezer, some of them form icicles. When the icicles melt, your challah will become wet enough to transfer the wetness. We can't heat that up. So what you would have to do is take a paper towel or towel, dry the challah, take up all the icicles, and that, so you see that the challah itself will be dry, then you could put it on top of it. So
I have a question. If you forget something, you just forget what you do.
if you forgot, it matters if there is a lenient opinion according to others. In other words, there's a strict opinion, there's a lenient opinion, and we usually go with a strict opinion if that's the case. If someone forgot and there's a lenient opinion that says it is permissible, then you could use it. If it's according to all opinions, a malacha was done, a transgression was done, it was called cooking, it was called baking, whatever other malacha is, you're not allowed to have any benefit until after Shabbos.
It's like when you come to the room and you turn on the light and
So putting it, closing the light is a double, someone goes in,
It's like really.
you go in, you go, oh, and you close it back again. That was a double. So opening the light was one transgression. The closing the light is the second transgression. So if it was open, you leave it open. Now, are you allowed to benefit from this?
No. I'm talking like it's a
So this again, it takes time to become the Shabbos to become a part of your life. It matters where you're coming from, matters how you were raised. Hashem takes all of this into consideration. In the time of the Beis Hamikdash, you have to bring a carbon. So there was the Gemara tells about a great sage that he once did something. And he said he wrote it into his diary that when the Beis Hamikdash is built, you should remember to bring a carbon.
I understand. I'm just saying, like when it's just
it's a reaction that you have, especially. So what people do is they will have the light. They will either put a piece of tape, or they have those things that, right now they have a magnet that just goes onto it. It's made special for lights. They sell them in the stores here. I don't know in other places, but here in Crown Heights, they have a population that is interested to protect from opening up and closing lights. And you just put it on. It's magnet. So it's carved out to fit the switch. Many different kinds. So you just put it on. Then it's covered. So that's especially the bathroom light. There matters different lights that you go in, go out. So,
I'm talking about normal light, like in case of the forgetting.
Yes. So so we try to make the different things it should not to prevent it from happening.
The soup, for example, that you take up and you forget